Welcome, everyone. It's 3 o'clock, and why don't we get started? You're at the Crafting Content That Promotes Your Business session today, and I'm Leslie Kareckas. I'm Senior Product Marketing Manager at FileMaker. I've been with the company for a long time, more than 10 years now, and I do the messaging and positioning for the products within the product line. I've been doing that for a long time. My entire career has been spent in Silicon Valley doing advertising, direct marketing, event marketing, and such. And so today, I wanted to share with you what I do in my day-to-day life in the hopes that helps you market your business. So I'll be going through the process I go through to create marketing content. I'll cover the components of that content, and I'll give you some concrete examples to help you better visualize what I mean. And so within this presentation, there are 3 sections. One is how you go about creating your story, writing the messaging. Then how do you make that messaging appealing and look nice so people want to read it and retain it and remember it? And then third, I'll give you some ideas of other things that you can do to spread that message. The messaging I'll be talking about today primarily is how you create messaging for your website. I use that as the example because that's our primary vehicle for distributing our messaging. So first is creating your story. So before we even get started writing, we want to do some research. And I've given this presentation a couple times here at DevCon, and the first question I get is like, well, Leslie, we're a small business. We can't afford research. We can't afford to hire somebody. And I'm not talking about that. Research can be done on a local, individual basis and on a very small scale and still provide very good information to help you make some decisions. So what do I mean? So research could include doing a survey. SurveyMonkey is a very affordable tool. We use that at work. Google is a great research tool. Googling different people, different businesses, and things like that. I get a lot of information out of Google. Also, if you have a target market or some customers, why don't you call them up, ask them some questions. Or through events, maybe host a roundtable, invite some people over to your business. Spend a half a day asking them questions, getting information from them. Or if you don't want to do that, maybe there's an event already going on that your target market's going to be at. Ask them questions. If that fails, maybe there's a local bar that a lot of your target hangs out at. Maybe you can strike up a conversation with them. There's always opportunity to get information. I'll give you an example. When I was at a startup a few years back, we didn't have a lot of money, and we were trying to test a tagline. We were developing taglines for our business. And we were working downtown San Jose where there are lots of office buildings. And we'd stand outside at lunch or after work and just poll people as they left. And we got a lot of meaningful data that way. So that's what I mean about research. One of the most important things are the pain points. What problem is your target trying to solve? And why do we want to research pain points? Because the avoidance of pain is the strongest motivator for change. So figure out what's bothering your target. Next are demographic information. Demographics are quantitative pieces of information. They include things like gender, age, job title, education. One note I'd like to make is not all demographic information is necessarily relevant for every product and service. It might not matter the gender or the age. Third are psychographics. What attitudes or interests does your target have? What makes them tick? What motivates them? What personal interests do they have? What values do they have? That's very important information. That is qualitative information. So just to give you an example with the target market we have at FileMaker, to show you what I mean, the pain points our target market generally has is that they're collecting information manually. A lot of times that information is scattered everywhere. It's not centralized. Also, they're in that work rut. Did you attend the special session this morning and hear about the work rut? So that means just you're on a daily treadmill just trying to get those everyday tasks done, just barely trying to get them done. So you're in that work rut. And then third, you're having a hard time finding the right technology to fit the problem that you're trying to solve. So those are the pain points of our target market. Demographically, our customers tend to skew male, mid-40s, college educated, and either a business owner or the line of business manager. And I also want to know about demographics. You don't necessarily have to target your demographic. If you know that's your existing demographic, maybe you want to expand your customer base and figure out what kind of messaging would appeal more to female business owners, right? So you don't necessarily have to target your specific demographic. And psychographically, the stuff that makes FileMaker customers tick, usually they're very curious and inquisitive. They spend their free time researching solutions for the problem, and they know technology can help them solve their problem. So this just gives you an example of what I mean by pain points, demographics, and psychographics. So what do we do with that information? How do we put that all together? We develop personas. A persona is a fictionalized character that embodies all of those traits. So it represents the user of your product or service. Why use a persona? You can target, but also so you can get everybody in your organization on the same page. It provides focus for everyone. And it's easier to connect with something concrete like a persona rather than abstract ideas. For example, so if you're developing the product, the people developing the product will develop features that will appeal to this persona. If you're marketing that product, you'll develop messaging that will appeal to that persona. So it gets everybody focused and on the same page. So I'll just give you some examples of what I mean. We're rolling out some new positioning, so we're in the process of creating new personas. One persona is the small to medium-sized business owner, and he's looking for a way to quickly create custom apps, but without the inherent complexity and costliness. Next is Gil, who is the line of business manager within an enterprise. Similarly, they're also looking to deploy custom apps, but they need to make sure that it's performant, stable, reliable, secure, and it'll also pass their IT department's muster. Third is the developer persona. That's a very important persona for the FileMaker ecosystem. Developers coming in that have been using the platform, they get attracted to the platform because they can rapidly create apps, deploy them, and the learning curve is somewhat quick and easy. Ideally, you'd like to develop messaging for each persona. There would be unique messaging for each persona. Okay, so that's about the target market. That's one part of the research. The second part of the research is knowing your own business, being a bit introspective. You want to ask yourself, not only what the product is, but what problem are you trying to solve? And hopefully, that's parallel to the pain point that your target market has. So ask yourself, what problem are you trying to solve? To give you an example, at FileMaker, we're trying to get people out of their work rut. That's the main problem that we're trying to solve. Next, you'll want to examine the competitive landscape. Who else out there is doing something similar? It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but in a similar vein. Do some research on them. What are they doing? What are they doing well? What are they not doing so well? So this morning, if you saw the presentation, we've classified our competitors as either appliance apps, those utility apps, or more expensive IT enterprise type of systems. That's who we view our competitors as. So once you've examined that competitive landscape, what is your competitive advantage? What is your differentiator? What is the 1 to maybe 3 things that you do better than anyone else? You don't need a huge laundry list. Just need 1 to 3 things. 1 to 3 things that you do the best. And to give you an example, with FileMaker, we're very flexible. You can create almost anything. It's multi-platform, so you can deploy in desktop, mobile, web. You can do that on-premise or in the cloud. And also, it's fairly easy to integrate with other APIs or emerging technology. So that's what we've defined as our competitive advantage. Next are the barriers to entry. What is preventing your target from taking action to buying your product or service? What's holding them back? So what we found is really it's doing nothing. Because people are in their work rut, they're so consumed with the everyday task, maybe they feel they can't take the time to research something new, to find out what will better help them. Or maybe they find that process of researching too overwhelming and complex, so they want to do nothing. So if you know the barrier to entry, or barriers, then you can address that and help your prospect to that buyer's journey. So that's a little bit about knowing your business. So we've covered the researching, your target market, your own business, and the competitive landscape. Finally ready to get started writing. So how many of you are writing for your business? Do some writing, do some marketing writing. Okay, Sweet, a lot of you, cool. Okay, how many of you out there can sit down and from start to finish, just boom, 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 got it done? Okay, yes, there's a few of you. And cherish that skill, value that skill, because it's not a very common skill to have. So in fact, I've been writing for several years, and I write every day, and I can't do that. So if you're like me, I have a few tips to share with you of what I do to get started. One is I just write anything. It doesn't even matter if it's relevant to what I'm supposed to write, because if it's jumbling around here, I can't clear my head until I've typed it out on screen. So just type it out. It doesn't matter if it makes sense or not, just get rid of it out of your head. Next, once you start getting going, if you know how sometimes you just get stuck in that one word, what's that word? What's that phrase? What do I want to say? Don't get stuck. Just mark it with an X and keep on moving on. And once you do take a break, oftentimes you'll go back to that and that word will just pop in your head. So just keep on moving along. Don't get tripped up on the one word. Do you start at the beginning? Not necessarily. In fact, that intro paragraph might be the last thing you want to write because it summarizes what people are about to read. If you want to start in the middle, that's fine. Start at the end, that's fine. And then you put it all together afterwards. So start wherever you like. Next, make sure you know when you're the most creative. I'm not the perky morning person by any means. So in the morning, I might just answer emails and do more routine tasks until I warm up a bit and get into the writing. So I don't try to waste time forcing myself. I write when I know it's a good time for me. And then if all else fails, if you're finding that writing just isn't your skill, maybe the trade-offs are hiring somebody and it's more efficient for you rather than spending a lot of time doing that. So those are just some few tips to keep in mind. So now we're actually into the writing the copy. And for me, there are 8 important elements that all good marketing copy should have. That problem statement. See, that keeps on coming up, right? What problem are you trying to solve? What are the pain points? That's the first thing people want to understand. How are you going to solve their problem? What is it? What category do you belong to? Categories are great because they help people understand where you fit in the marketplace. What does it do? What action does it allow your customers to take? Who is it for? Who is that target market that you've just defined? Benefit statements. So the tendency in writing copy is to start writing about the product features and functionality, because that's the most important, right? Well, it is important, but that's not what's going to immediately gauge your target. People want to know how you're going to make their life better. So start off with the benefits. That's what gets people drawn in, and then you can later on talk about the product features. Now that you've talked about how awesome you are, you kind of got to back it up. You got to tell people why you're awesome. So you have to have proof points and various data to validate that. Number 7, concrete examples. Tell people exactly what it is that you do, because people attach to concrete examples more so than abstract ideas. They'll remember it more. And the almighty call to action. Be directive of what you want your customer to do next after they've read your copy. Don't assume that they'll know what to do. Tell them what you want them to do. I'll share with you just how we've done this at FileMaker, and I'll show you 2 different examples. One is this, the messaging for this small to medium-sized business manager, then also for the developer. You'll see that the messaging is very similar, but it's nuanced slightly to appeal to each target a little bit differently. So I'll go over this pretty quickly because you've seen this already this morning. So the problem is, getting people out of the work rut. What are we? We're the workplace innovation platform. What does it allow you to do? You can create and share custom apps and easily integrate them with APIs and emerging tech. Who uses it? Teams of any size, small, medium, large. And what's the overall benefit statement? It allows people to solve unique problems even as they change. It's easy to create and it's easy to tweak as you move along. And the biggest differentiator is that we make breakthrough technology accessible to everyone. So this just should sound familiar from this morning. And so we also recently added some messaging on our website for the developer. So you can see some similarities and differences. The problem for the developer, we wrote this messaging hoping that developers out there might start using the FileMaker platform to create solutions for their customers or their organization. So their problems are slightly different, right? They suffer from the fact that everybody wants a ton of different apps. They have exploding demand, more than they can actually help with. Also, sometimes when they're in the middle, when they're doing the projects, it might be hard to have a clear set of requirements, and those requirements might change along the way. And third, they may be using multiple complex technologies that are not solving the problem. What is it? Still, you'll see this is the same as the other one, right? It's still, FileMaker platform is still the workplace innovation platform within this messaging. What does it allow developers to do? It allows them to rapidly create and deploy custom apps in that no low and pro code environment. You heard Rick Kalman talk about that this morning. Who uses it? It's the same, still business teams. And what does it allow them to do? So they can create quality apps for their users, that meet their users' needs, that they can deliver that on time, and that they can change as they need. And then the differentiator for a developer is more the fact that FileMaker is a unified stack, right? So it combines the business logic, data, and UI layers into one, so that people don't have to use multiple technologies. So you can see how the content is very similar, but it's messaged a little bit differently for the business manager versus the developer. Now back to proof statements. So we're converging back into proof statements here, which apply to both targets. When we have our marketing, we'll talk about how many people use the platform, right? So we'll use the example of over 1 million people under active subscription. We also like to brag about our wonderful ecosystem, right? We have a ton of great developers. We have an awesome, vibrant partner community. We do have an online community that people are very active in. So we use these as proof points to help people new to the platform feel comfortable that, hey, this is stable, this is reliable, it's been along for a while. I might want to use this myself. So that's the purpose of a proof statement. The 7th one was concrete examples. You'll see sprinkled out through our messaging, we'll use, FileMaker can do anything, right? But that doesn't really tell you, well, what does anything mean? So we'll use common examples. For example, that you can manage contacts, track projects, events, run invoices. So very, very specific things. And then we also invest a lot of time in developing customer stories. So why are customer stories, why are they important? Has anybody heard of this principle called the principle of social proof? So what that means is that in times of indecision, people look to other people they view as similar to themselves to help them make that decision or validate the decision they've already made. So with a customer story, that's why it's important for customer stories that whoever you're targeting, that customer story should be very parallel to that prospect. So for example, if you're going after a medical person in the medical field, make sure that customer story you're showing them is a medical-related customer story, okay? So we want to make sure it's very relevant. We have a lot of customer stories, a wide breadth of customer stories, but oftentimes people will just read the customer story that most reflects what they are and what their needs are. Okay, the almighty call to action. There's 3 categories to calls to action. 1 is awareness. Maybe after they read your initial copy, you want them to learn more. Maybe that's the time that you direct them to your product features page. Have them get more information. Second one is action. Maybe you want them to do something like download a trial and start playing with your software. And third is the engagement. Maybe you want them to take a quiz or a poll, right? That's often used in social media quite a bit. So now that you have your overall messaging, your body copy, as I like to call it, it's important to create a tagline or a theme, because this summarizes what people are about to read. It's good to give people an idea of what they're about to read, because that will help draw them in and engage them and make them want to read. And I have 4 different categories, 4 different types of taglines and themes. 1 is value. What are people going to get out of using your product or service? Okay, value. Action. What do you want them to do, or what are they going to experience if they use your product? Third is emotion. How do you want people to feel when they've used your product or service? Emotion, I'll state, is not exclusively, but a lot of it is used in B2C marketing, not so much in B2B. For example, McDonald's had a campaign a few years ago, like, I'm loving it. You'll see that a lot more in consumer marketing, consumer-based marketing. And 4th is vision. You're communicating maybe an overall vision that you want your product roadmap to be and such. So just to give you some examples, if you've been to DevCon before, you probably have seen some of these themes that we've developed. And so within a very few number of words, you can communicate a lot. One year we had aptitude for apps. This was a combination of, we were kind of telling you what you're going to learn about, and also communicating our vision that we're moving from calling things databases and solutions to apps. Or platform for innovation. Wow, sounds familiar. We had that back in 2013, 5 years ago. So we were communicating where we wanted our platform to go. Also, with Business Without Boundaries, that's when we were doubling down on our mobile strategy. So you can kind of see how that these themes can help drive the rest of your messaging that you have. Okay, so the next is this tiny copy. Tiny copy are things like captions, quotes, boilerplates. Boilerplates are the 2 to 3 sentences that describe a company. A lot of times if I go to a company's website and I can't understand what they do from reading their marketing copy, I go to the bottom of their press release and then read what the boilerplate is so I can understand what that is. And copy blocks, those are 25, 50, 100-word blocks that really summarizes what you do. Captions are really important because studies have shown that people are 4 times more likely to read them, and they might read that first. And if they read that and they get engaged, then they are more likely to read the rest of the stuff on your page, the rest of the copy on your page. Trigger words. Studies have shown that the eye is naturally drawn to these type of words. People love a good deal, a bargain. And if it's free, even better, right? Also, people like to know what's up and coming, what's new. So words like introducing, announcing. Also, people want to know things are stable, reliable. So things like secure, proven, improved are very powerful. Or, back to that principle of social proof, people, if everybody else is using it, well, maybe I should too. So things like best-selling and leading are powerful things. This is not an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea of things to sprinkle. When I say sprinkle, I mean sprinkle. You don't want it to be every other word. So, anyway. Use spell check, but don't only rely on spell check. Especially with the advent of autocorrect. Has autocorrect ever made a benign word very sinister for you? Yeah, so you want to. I've been really careful if I type things and reread things, especially if I'm sending things to my colleagues. You never know what autocorrect is going to do. So make sure you print things out and reread them and do it manually. And when I say print things out, for whatever reason, I might read something on screen several times, but once I print it out and see it on paper, I discover other errors I'd never have. That's also another way to do that. It's almost impossible to catch 100% of your own errors. Because what happens is that your eye becomes blind to the copy. Because you've probably read it 20, 50, 100 times already. Your eye just starts glossing over it. So get a friend or colleague to read it. They'll find other errors. And not only may they find errors, they'll let you know if something's clear or not. So then you can go and refine your copy. At work, a lot of the copy that you see on the website, it might be the 15th revision before it becomes final. Because the more you revise it, make it more clear and concise, the more likely people are going to read it. And those incremental differences make a big impact. So definitely have other people review it. So in the vein of proofreading, here's some commonly confused words. It's and it's, the contraction versus the possessive. Peak and peak, peak. Complementary versus complementary. Lose versus loose. And the list goes on. These are some of the ones that I like. I think my favorite, though, is peak, because it's often misspelled with sneak peek. I find that error a lot. Even on TV, I was watching network show, and they spelled sneak peek incorrectly. So I think if I were ever to buy a mountain, I would name it sneak peek, and then it wouldn't be misspelled. So there's a lot more words, but it kind of gives you, and if you're ever in doubt, just Google it, and it will be a good fresh reminder. Okay. So now we've covered how you create your story. Let's talk about how you make it look good so people want to read it. Formatting is important because attention spans are shrinking. The amount of copy I write now, today, is much less than I did 5, 6 years ago. So it's even more important to be concise. So paragraphs only need to be a sentence sometimes, maybe maximum 3. Bullet points, 3 to 4 is the best. 7 at the most. At the very most, but 3 to 4 is ideal. Also bold. Bold is a powerful tool. Your eye is automatically attracted to it. But guess what? Sometimes you go to sites and everything's bold, and it becomes cluttered, then your eye doesn't want to go. So use bold very sparingly. And also break up the text with graphics. That gives your eye a break. So it gives you a mini break, and then it still wants to go on. And also, not only does it give your eye a break, it helps you better visualize what you're about to read. So that's why graphics are important. And then easy to read. The reason why you want something easy to read is that a person equates something hard to read with a task you're asking them to do is difficult, which is usually not the case, right? That goes to make sure you use easy to read fonts. Usually sans serif fonts are easier to read on the eye. Keep the fonts consistent. Make it the same font. One font's great, two at the most. And then high contrast. On slides like this, a black background with white text is fine because you only have a few words on the slides. But on websites, generally you'd like to have a lighter background with darker text because your eye is spending a lot more time on that page. We do have certain parts on our website where we do have sections with dark background and white text, but again, that's used very sparingly. So that's just general rules of thumb to go by. So that was formatting. Let's talk about color. Why color matters and why companies spend a lot of time figuring out why to use what colors they should actually use to represent the brand. So the four main reasons color matters is because people are more likely, if they find the color appealing, they're more likely to read your content. Secondly, they'll remember your content better. They'll retain it. Third, they're more likely to respond to the task you're asking them to do. And fourth, it increases brand recognition. So you're probably saying, well, okay, then that's fine, but what colors do I pick? So there's a couple different schemes you can go with. One is the complementary color scheme, where you're picking colors from opposite sides of the color wheel. You'll see a very common scheme of blue and yellow or orange. You'll see that a lot. These are very vibrant, high contrast colors. And also this scheme can be used in small doses. You could use these for accent colors against a neutral background. So you have to be careful how you use them. Second is the analogous color scheme. This is where the colors on the color wheel are more closer together. You can pick a dominant color like a blue and maybe pick lighter shades of blue. This is a lot more harmonious on the eye, and it's easier to spend a lot of time on that page. So let me give you some examples. You can kind of see some of these apps that we've created. The one on the far left, you'll see that use the blue and orange as the accent color, and then with black as being the more neutral, dominant color. And then the first two, you'll see that, the last two, where we're using different blues for the analogous color scheme, and then the mauve and the gray. You'll see that a little bit different, right? A little bit more calming. As I mentioned, big companies spend a lot of time figuring out what color represents a brand. And that's because each color represents something. And I did some research on this. I tried to aggregate the information I got because there were some difference in opinions. So definitely take it with a grain of salt. It's not a hard and steadfast rule, but it's just interesting information to consider. So blue is often used to represent trust, security, reliability. You know, banks and financial institutions tend to use that a lot. Green is used a lot. Wealth could represent wealth, could represent health, nature, the environment. Fidelity, for example, Fidelity Investments uses their green quite a bit. Red is used to convey energy, passion, excitement. So that's why you see all these like sales clearance sales signs in red, right? Purple can convey wisdom, royalty, respect. Yellow or orange yellow promotes a sense of optimism and cheerfulness. It also helps move along impulse buyers and window shoppers. Have you noticed that the Amazon logo, they have that orangish arrow underneath? They're using that orange. Black conveys power, authority, stability. So I'll just give you a couple examples. At Chase Bank, National Bank, they use the blue, their logo, promoting that stability. Whole Foods, a national grocery store that has a lot of organic foods, they're using that green to convey the more natural side of their business. And of course, the exclusive Centurion card, better known as the Black Card, the Amex Black Card, that definitely conveys the power and authority. So you can see how these colors are interwoven into the logos and why some companies choose these colors. Again, it's not steadfast, but it could be a good guideline. So why do we use graphics? As I mentioned before, they do enhance the copy, right? It gives your eye a little break, breaks up the text, so you're more likely to continue reading. It's really hard just to read solid text on a web page. Also, the placement of the image is really important. On our web pages, many times you'll find that we use a headline, a subhead, and an image because we feel that draws people in, and then they'll want to scroll down and read the rest of the copy. So it's good to maybe put on your web pages images, or on a piece of your marketing collateral, images at the top to draw people in. And also make sure the image represents what you're writing about, because it does help people visualize what they're about to read or already have read. Different types of images, screenshots of your product. People want to see exactly what it looks like. Or also people using your product. Because psychologically, people like looking at pictures of other people. It really draws people in. And just a couple quick tips when you're taking screenshots of your product. Make sure the product fills the entire screen. Don't leave a large parts of it blank. Conversely, also maybe leave a little negative space so it's not too cluttered. And again, within that same vein, have images and text, maybe not text only, to break up, give your eye a little break. And if you fields in your solution, make sure they're all filled out so it looks nice and complete. And when you're putting data in, make sure it's fake data. You don't want like real phone numbers and addresses out there in the public forum. And even if you're still using the same solution, it's still very robust, make sure the dates are current, because even if the dates are off by a couple years, it makes things seem old. And then also when we take screenshots for iPhone and iPad, we make sure that the battery and the bars are full. So those are some of the guidelines that we use when we're taking screenshots. Another good visual are infographics. That's a visualization of your data. And they say that you'll get 12% more engagement or traffic if you're using infographics than if you're not. And infographics are also important for different personas, right? Maybe IT or technical people want to see those infographics more. So that might be a better graphic than maybe a picture of a person. So consider your target too in the graphics that you use. Okay, videos. Videos are everywhere now, right? You can't not have a video. Videos are used for product launches, company overviews, trainings, events, everywhere. And why are videos important? Well, because studies have shown that people will spend twice as much time on your web page or your site if they've watched a video. So you're engaging them for a longer time. Also, they're 85% more likely to purchase after they've watched a video. So videos are a very, very important vehicle. And where do you use them? You see them everywhere now, right? In your website, especially social media, and also your presentations. So definitely, and then also now there's so many tools to easily create videos these days, right? So it's not so cost prohibitive as it might have been a few years back. This is the third and final section of the presentation. This could be an entire day worth of content. But I just wanted to highlight a few things to give you a better idea. If you've created marketing copy for your website, how else could you put your message out there to broaden the reach? Okay, but very, very high level stuff. What is SEO, the search engine optimization? And that means really constructing your web content and your web pages in such a way that it influences the organic search on engines such as Google. That's really what it's about. So what I want to touch on specifically, SEO is pretty broad, but specifically on metadata that you include with your web pages. First piece of metadata are the keywords. And keywords should be the common words within the page. You can have up to 5. You comma separate them, but you don't need spaces in between the comma. Second are the page titles. You see pick an app for any task. Is that what it says? That's the page title. That should be unique for every page. You don't want to have the same page title for multiple pages on your site. Make sure it's unique and it's relevant to the content on the page. And that should be, under 60 characters. Third is the page description. It's a little bit longer. It's kind of similar in the fact that you want it to be relevant to the content on the page and you want it to be unique. You could also include calls to action in that description. You have a little bit longer, 150 characters. And you can see that that's the sentence that starts with discover. So those are 3 elements, the keywords, the page title, and the page description. Those are relatively easy to add to your, no cost to you, right, to add to your web pages. Okay, email. Email is still a very powerful tool. I think the most important thing is spending some time on that subject line. If you've engaged people with the subject line, they're more likely to open the email. You might want to A/B test. Come up with a couple subject lines, split the list, send it out, and see which performs best. And then you can refine your campaign as you go, right? So take some time on that subject line. Subject lines should generally be between 40 and 65 characters at the most. Also, with emails, unlike your website, you should cover just one topic. The tendency is to add a lot of different things, but keep it to one topic. Keep it focused, because ultimately you're going to have a call to action, a focused call to action, where maybe they'll be able to learn more. Again, similar to everything else we've talked about, make sure you're communicating the benefits, the value, the differentiator. Let people know why you're going to make their life better. And then emails especially, make it easy to scan. So keep those paragraphs short, use those bullet points, and that is a very effective way to be able to write messaging within emails. And then a visual element, it doesn't always have to be a photograph. You can see here we just emphasize top 10 reasons in hopes that people would read the list, right? So it can be done with just words as well, the visual element. Yes, in marketing, you want multiple impressions to convert a prospect to a customer, but there's a certain line you can cross. If you get too many emails, it reduces the efficacy of that email, and then you're going to start losing your list. People will start unsubscribing. So be careful how often you email. You do want multiple touches, but people don't want to be touched too much, okay? And then just briefly on social media, make sure your social media sites look similar to your website. Make sure they all have a very similar look and feel. You want to make sure that people understand that's your brand across all these different channels. Also use those keywords, because that can help boost your SEO as well. The reason social media is so powerful is it's not just a one-way communication channel. It's two-way. People can retweet, share your posts. So it's all about engagement. How do you engage that prospect? Make sure that the content is extremely relevant to them, right? So it's all about engagement with social media. And the hashtags, I think people know mostly about the hashtags. Make sure you use the hashtags, because that's how people will uncover what you're posting. And then set some goals, analyze the results. This is the case too with all of marketing. Marketing is all about experimenting. We're never done in marketing. You can always do better, and that's why I find it so exciting, because you can always do better. So not only does that apply for social media, that applies to everything else that we've done. So I know this is a lot of information to cover. So I thought I would just leave you with 6 things that if you were to take away, then you've gotten a lot of this presentation. One is do that research first. Find out about your target market, what makes them tick. Examine your own business a little bit and find out who else is doing it out there in the marketplace. Next, when you write copy, tell people the benefit. Why is it going to make their life better? Do that first before you do anything else. And keep it short. Make it easy to scan, easy to read. Use those bullet points. Use the bold sparingly. Refine that writing. It's harder to write less words. Really hard to write less words, but that refinement can make a big impact down the line. Visuals matter. Color matters. Take some time to figure out what really works. What will make your content pop. And be consistent. The same message and the same look and feel across multiple marketing vehicles has a bigger impact than things that aren't as consistent. People will be better able to recognize your brand and be able to engage with your brand. And last is start small. You don't have to do all of this at once. Pick 1 to 2 things and focus on that and refine that before you move on. You don't have to do everything at once. Okay, so with that, I'd like to wrap things up. All right, well, thanks for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the show.